Coming up on this episode of the Seahawkers podcast, was this John Schneider's Jedi mind trick draft? We're going to be asking a couple of big questions tonight. Was Mike and John's plan to nearly exclusively just like draft freak athletes? And is that actually a good strategy? We'll dive into that. Did John Schneider on day 3 cave a little bit and give both our offensive and defensive coordinators kind of a special gift on day 3? And is that the right strategy? Was that something cool? And I think importantly, why did this entire draft saga remind me of the original Star Wars trilogy? We're going to be covering all of that on this episode of the Seahawkers podcast. Fired up that you're here with us. So I am Clinton Bonner. And yes, I'm riding solo tonight, Han Solo, if you will. Brandon and Adam, they're getting back home from their travels out to Seattle. And I've got good news here. Brandon will be on very likely tomorrow night with EJ Snyder of Bootleg Football. I mean, come on, EJ and Brett, they are two of the best. And together with Bootleg, one of the best. So they're going to be going through every single player, I'm sure. And knowing EJ, probably some of the UDFAs, we're not even going to get into the UDFAs tonight. We'll save that, leave that meat on the bone for, the real professionals like Brandon and EJ. But we got a lot of really cool stuff to dig into. So, hey, I see some folks piling in. So I had Sam and Carmen out there. I know Dougzilla Monster was already chatting it up. I'm going to do my best tonight to also keep an eye on chat. But with that, I am going solo tonight. So, but if you see something, flag it or send it again. If I miss it, I will do my best to stay out there with it as well. And folks, let's do us a favor too. And if you are out there, hey, the likes, the subscribes, and joining and supporting the podcast, they really help so much more than you could possibly imagine. It's like a little tiny gift you could give us, which we would really, really appreciate. And speaking of gifts, we have got to get to this. If you want to give, let's go and talk about our sponsor, Body Spec, real quick. And if you want to give a gift to yourself or somebody you love, if you're like a bit of an enthusiast or really trying to understand what's going on with that body of yours, well, Body Spec has you covered for less than the price of a haircut. You can get a DEXA scan, the world's most accurate body composition. You're seeing it on screen right there. Body Spec DEXA scans, they focus on the numbers that actually matter. This is like your body composition, your bone density, your overall health metrics. It's a really powerful way to actually understand what is going down with your body. And it is becoming gifting season once again because Mother's Day is coming right up. Great idea. You could give the gift of a DEXA scan, and with a $10 off, use SHP at checkout. You see it on screen there, bodyspec.com/C-Hawkers. That'll take you to the landing page, or scan the QR code. Use code SHP for $10 off. Give the gift of a DEXA scan today. Hit that QR code. Thank you to our sponsor, Body Spec. We appreciate you more than you know. All right. And you see it there on screen. And one more time, speaking of appreciating more than we know, we got Ryan 911. Of course, folks, he is our live executive producer. I think you know this by now with the $9.99 super chat. Ryan is not only one of the coolest dudes that does this live and really supports the show this way, but he's also always hanging out in the Discord. We affectionately call him Coach in the Discord. So shout out to all our Discord members because, hey, y'all are absolutely amazing and really, really do. I don't know. Y'all make it so much fun. So speaking of so much fun, let me just bring it back here. Speaking of so much fun, folks, we had an absolute blast this weekend. For folks, many that are on right now, I'm sure you probably heard, or you were hanging out with us for the 2 days. But we went out to the Clearwater Casino as the Seahawkers podcast, and just some choice pictures there. This was tremendous. Once again, a huge shout out to Christopher, who really hooked things up out there. Christopher Hart, he's a flocker. He works at the casino. And there were like 500 of our newest, closest 12s that we got to meet and greet. And there was also live auctions. They had music with some of the guys that used to roll with Sir Mix-a-Lot's crew, because he's a Seattle artist as well. They were there. And then there was Seahawks legends, and there was current Seahawks like Brady Russell, Julian Love. And if you don't know, you might have seen it by now. It's actually doing some great numbers out on YouTube. We're grateful for that. We got to sit down with the Seahawks legend, Earl Thomas, and you can find that out on our YouTube. So go check that out because I think you're really gonna enjoy that. Let's see what the snail has to say. The snail, who's been a member now on YouTube for 31 months. He says, Faye and I give them a B. I like the Milrow pick, even if it doesn't work. It's good process. Not a huge fan of the first pick, but I still don't hate it. The snail, what I don't hate is that you've been at it for 31 plus months out on YouTube. That means a lot to us. So thank you so much. And we got Jeff Stevens saying, great to see you, bro. Get to see your bro, Jason, join the podcast too. Yeah. Jason Bonner, also known as 12th Man Records in the Discord. He was there live. He was one of the folks that was on screen along with Amy. She was there. Lisa from Seattle with her husband, Greg, and their friend. It was really, really special. And look, as someone who grew up in Long Island as a Seahawks fan since I was 5 or 6 years old, who lives in Connecticut, for me to be able to get on a plane, go do this with great friends and all the people that I've gotten to meet through this, it is like literally boyhood dream stuff come true. So really, really, really do appreciate that. All right. So we have got a lot to cover tonight. Again, check out that Earl interview. But right now we're going to talk about this draft. Of course, what else are we going to talk about, right? So, what can you say? Maybe one word. It's like, wow, like this was huge. This was, let's see, here we go. This was a draft haul and literally in many ways, right? 11 different picks, started with 10. There was a lot of navigation, 7 picks on day 3 alone by Schneider. And it had everything. It had the wow factor. It had sizzle. It was taking needs. It was taking big swings. There were trades. And maybe at pick number 92, quite possibly the most electric pick of the entire draft. So we're going to get into all that. First, I'm going to break down 5 quick observations for me about this draft. So number 1, and it's kind of a theme we're going to run with as we do also get into the Star Wars trilogy a bit, is that 50 million Elvis fans can't be wrong, right? And by that, I mean, whether it's some folks like, I think the bootleg football folks, I believe they liked our draft quite a bit, but all the folks that are like, new media really loving the Seahawks draft, or old media, really the ESPN types really thinking we did a great job. Most folks are giving this like a solid B plus, A plus, and it's kind of across the board. And I think most Seahawks fans are also in that category as well, thinking that this might be one of John Schneider's best executed drafts. So observation number 1 is across the board, people seem to really like this draft. Others, the Patriots, see a lot of love for the Raiders, a lot of love for the Giants. Me personally, I absolutely love what the Patriots did. I think they might have had the best draft, and there's a reason for that, and we'll talk about that in just a bit. Observation number 2 for me is that John and Mike basically went to Freak Town. They went to Funky Town. They went to all the towns where all the greatest athletes are gathered. And we're going to discuss the impact of that through the 3 days. We're not going to go through every single pick. Again, we'll leave that for EJ and Brandon, but we'll definitely talk about the days and the big moments. And there was this obvious theme that when they could, they were defaulting to take the very best athlete with the highest potential ceiling. Let's talk about that as we go through it as well. Look, that's a shiny thing to go do, but is it smart? Is it the best way to go draft? We'll take a peek at that. And again, I'm going to keep on peeking in on the chat to see if I could pull some stuff on screen as we keep on going here. Observation number 3. Anybody know that the score was 9-2? If I said the score was 9-2, folks in chat know what I mean by that? I'm going to give you the answer pretty quick here. It was 9 offensive players drafted to only 2 defensive players. So I do wonder, did the Seahawks squander an opportunity to really add strength to defense? Or with the folks that we took with those 2 picks, are they going to do it? Because those were some big swings as well, especially Imanwari, which we're going to talk about in a bit with the trade up there. That's observation number 3. Observation number 4, so much room for activities. We obviously heard Schneider was very, very giddy with the pre-draft process, having 10 picks, he was excited. Uh, 5 in the first 92. He had that bounty and that room to move around. And then the thing he did on day one, which we'll talk about in a second, I think it really cleared the plate for him to kind of go bananas the rest of the time. So we want to talk a little bit about that process. Was it good process? Are there things he could have done better? And he delivered a couple of special projects to his offensive and defensive coordinator, I think because he had all this room to roam. I think it's pretty cool. I don't want to get into some of those little nooks and crannies, if you will. Last observation before we start getting into day one, day two, and day three. Every great hero, the tale of a hero, there's a low point before surging back and, of course, winning the day. That's how great stories are told. The only thing is that I think I see the low point of the Seahawks draft maybe in a wildly different way than the 50 million Elvis fans we were talking about earlier, and how they see maybe a lull or a doldrum or two. And again, I want to talk about that with you, get some opinions, and see what we could do. All right. So Samuel Gelber saying Dodgers win. It was 9-2. I'm a Mets fan, but sure, Dodgers can win too. Could be a Dodgers Mets NLCS. We could do that again. And where's Evan? Where's Evan? I'm not sure what that means, Steele, but not here. If that's okay. If you know who Evan is, or if Evan needs help, call somebody. But good luck to Evan. I hope he is here. All right. So that is the observation recap. Let's quickly look at this again. Brandon and EJ Schneider will be on tomorrow night. You guys know all these names by now, but we'll quickly surmise this. Okay. Pick 1, Gray Zabel. Great. We'll talk about that in a second. Round 2, Nick Imanwari. We trade up. That's a bold move. We give up some draft capital. We go get a safety. Again, both Zabel and Imanwari, athletic freaks. Pick number 50, we go get the tight end from Miami, Elijah Arroyo. I'm learning to pronounce that a little bit better, Arroyo. And 92, of course, we make the big splash with Jalen Milroe, quarterback from Alabama. That was kind of fun. Go back and watch that Earl video, because he's also pounding the table for Jalen Milroe, which is really cool. All right. Then we get into day 3 with 7 different picks. Riley Mills injured during the college football playoffs at Notre Dame, kind of like a Ty Robinson, right? Lots of folks were pounding the table for Ty Robinson. Well, you kind of got a version of that, and just that heady, smart, tough motor, big, strong dude, kind of fun. Everybody's saying, hey, he would have went earlier if not for the injury. Okay. Torrey Horton comes off the board at 166. Very versatile wide receiver from Colorado State. We'll talk about him in a bit. Possibly the funnest pick in some weird ways for me. Round 5, Robbie OOTS, also from Alabama. Got a feeling might be bringing back Techno Tuesday with a name like that. And of course, he's listed as a fullback, so we got to talk about that. We got Bryce Cabeldue from Kansas. Look, it's almost like Gray Zabel clone without the first round pedigree. Why not double up? See what you can do there. So that's Bryce from Kansas. Damian Martinez, Miami running back, mini beast mode, or just kind of a Miami version, runs dudes over, and really the word on the street is fell down the board quite a bit. Most people are like, any other draft, this guy's getting a 4th or 5th round grade. He slips to 7. We'll see what that means. Mason Richmond, just a big beefy boy from Iowa, 5-year starter. People are saying maybe could have been a UDFA. Well, that's okay, whatever. But they like a guy that like a guy. The last one, super interesting. Special team ace, captain, and a heck of a wide receiver himself, speedster, Ricky White, the 3rd out of UNLV. That's the quick rundown. But I want to now get into, I mentioned earlier that this draft reminded me of the original Star Wars trilogy. And of course, that means we have to begin our journey with a farm boy living in the middle of nowhere. And that means we are, of course, on A New Hope. So as you know, we like to put polls and questions out on our youtube.com/Seahawkers podcast. Again, subscribe, follow, ask this right after day 1, say day 2 coming up. But first, rank our day 1 pick of Gray Zabel. The quick math here is that 96%, and maybe even more if we count Z for Zabel, which you might see on screen. So really the high 90s, we're saying this is either an A or a B. 60, almost 66%, almost 2/3 are saying perfect pick. And I got to tell you, when Brandon and myself and Adam, we walked around the room at Clearwater Casino, I would go table to table, talking to people, handing out cards saying, we'd love you to subscribe. Who do you want at pick 18? The vast majority, the 50 million Elvis fans who are Seahawks fans, were like, "Oh, well, we got to fix our O-line, don't we?" So that room was absolutely buzzing when we actually did fix that problem. So look, to me, I'm not going to drain this too much because it was a huge need, and he's also an athletic freak. I've been saying for weeks leading up to the draft that, people are like, you got to do BPA. You can't do a guard. You can't do a guard in round one. You got to do BPA. And I understand all that. My argument the whole time was, by the time it gets to 18, the Seahawks BPA might also be the thing they really, really need. It might be Gray Zabel, who happens to look like he could play a really strong guard. I, for one, am so excited about this, but I also loved what it allowed and kind of provided John Schneider to go do once he kind of did the safe thing, or did the thing that maybe was expected of him. And I'll check in on chat real quick here. So yeah, I don't know how to say the name, but I think it's maybe Tanae. Tanae saying, great to see Earl. That was absolutely amazing. Orion 911 saying, Arroyo, I should say, got to be Clinton's favorite pick. Well, we'll talk about that. I think Ryan already knows a little something about that. Dogs are the monster. Adam's going to be setting up. He'll be back later this week with the flagship show. Appreciate that for sure. And we got AZ Hawker saying, I like the fullback, but he could have been drafted in the 6th or 7th. Should have used the 5th round pick on a nose tackle from UCLA. AZ Hawker, I love this point because I'm going to talk about some of the opportunity cost things that emerged that while I think lots of folks were super jazzed about all the picks and the way it all laid out, I got to say, I think we left some meat on the bones. But the thing is, I don't think it's where you are pointing it out. So it's going to be really cool to talk about that with y'all because we got maybe to the same conclusion, but we're taking a different path there. So love that comment, dude. I really do appreciate it. All right. Well, if you're following if you're following along at home there, you know that if day one was A New Hope and we get the Farm Boy, well, that means day two is The Empire Strikes Back. And I'm most certain that I'd say the vast majority of you tuned in right now watching this later, you know how that one ends. Luke doesn't have a hand. He gets his ass beat by his dad, and he needs to be saved by the Millennium Falcon hanging off like an upside down antenna in Cloud City. But it's a great saving, and it really leads into, of course, the return of the Master Jedi, John Schneider. So I want to kind of take you through what I saw in day two. So a real reminder very quickly about day one. We have a separate video on YouTube. You can see that thumb right there. We entitled it Gray Day. It's like a 10-minute video or so, maybe even shorter. It's just live reaction from Clearwater Casino. So you can see how that went down with a lot of Seahawks fans, which was really cool. All right. So day two. So day two to me, let me get squared up here. I think most Seahawks fans, and I'd love to see your comments, drop them in the channel, please, really loved this day specifically and felt like this is the day that we won the draft. And my take is this. I absolutely think that day two might go down in NFL history, certainly Seahawks history, but if it goes really right, NFL history. So day two, 2025, it might go down in history as like the single best day that a team possibly could have had. It was ballsy, made huge moves, made big splashes, and I want to kind of go through them, but I called this Empire Strikes Back for a reason. Now, a lot of Star Wars fans would also say, yeah, I mean, the Empire ends up, they're winning at that point of the trilogy, but it's also the best movie, right? It's very well known for being the best movie. Huge splash with the attack on Hoth to start the whole thing off. And that is the trade up for Ibn Wari. So here's my take on this part. First and foremost, I absolutely loved the process. And I want to say that as many times as I possibly can. Before the draft started, I was like, with 10 picks, with there's this idea that there's X amount of blue chips, your Colston Lovelands and your Tyler Warrens and, your Abdul Carters, that there's only so many blue chips in this draft. And you got these freak athlete guys like Eamon Wari, who jumped out the building, was a first team All-American, like has good tape for sure, and can be seen as a first rounder. So I love the idea and the process of bundling other picks, taking a little bit less haul at that point, moving up and getting the guy you love. I support that 1,000%. I love the prospect of Eamon Wari. His athleticism is insane. You've heard 1,000 people talk about that already. I don't think any more needs to be said about that. For me, he's a little bit inconsistent for me. And when I look at safety play and I look at others like Xavier Watts and Kevin Winston, I see dudes who I think are more instinctual safeties that tackle more consistently and come downhill faster with more recognition and, sometimes more purpose than I see with Eamon Wari. So crazy athlete, but I'm not personally like 100% sold that he is a day one starter that helps this team this year. Now, I want to say all this before any tomatoes get thrown at the screen. If Schneider and Mike McDonald believe that this is their guy and believe that they're getting a first round talent at pick 35, I think that was the pick, I 100% support the process and I 100% support the decision. He's now a Seahawk. He's our guy. I love him. I love the fact that he's embracing Cam Chancellor. I love the fact that Richard Sherman announced the pick. I love the fact that he loves the LOB. He understands the lineage. He understands what it means to be a Seahawk. I think he's going to be a good Seahawk. So I can get around this really, really quickly. And if McDonald wants him, he knows what he's doing with safeties. So I absolutely trust it, but I love the process to trade up to get what you think is a blue chip. Let me pause and check and see if there's anything coming in here. So Gano's saying strikes back the best. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think Empire Strikes Back is kind of well known as probably the best of the first three at least. So any other opinions on that, just hit us up. So that's the piece with the big splash, the Battle of Hoth with Eamon Wari. Again, pour your opinions in here. I really do appreciate it. Second one is, can Arroyo translate to the NFL? Again, absolutely insane athlete. They took the freak circus athlete. He's insane. He runs, everybody's like, he runs away from DBs. He does. He has huge breakaway touchdowns on tape in college, and Cam Ward's throwing the ball all over the field. He helped Cam Ward get drafted first overall. No doubt about it. He's clearly an extremely talented pass catcher. Could be from the slot, could be like as an adopted X out there on the edge. If he hits big and hits huge, he actually could be like another Brock Bowers. Again, the ceiling is enormous for this player. So I get it. My big fear, and this is what I said prior to the draft, when we had folks like Max Toscano on from Remember the Tight Ends, who exclusively covers tight ends, was that he could be like another Noah Fant or Dalton Kincaid, where it's just this big X-like tight end, and he's got all this athleticism, and he's breaking away from bad linebacker play in college, and it just doesn't translate to the NFL. It's the talent is so much better, and at this point, if the Seahawks are saying things in the press conference like, "Yeah, he runs the whole route tree," and I mean, heck, we joked he might as well just be an X. I get that, but why not just go draft your third wide receiver? I realized later we get Horton, and I think that's a bit of a coup for where we got him. But there's dudes on that are already right there, and we'll get into that in a second with the opportunity cost. But for me, if you really wanted a guy who could run all the routes and could kind of be a de facto X, why not draft an X? So for me, I would have been happier with waiting on tight end a little bit later. Gunnar Helm went, I think, day 3, 5th round. Evan Mitchell, Notre Dame went later. They're different, but Evan Mitchell can play the position both ways. And as of right now, Arroyo, I think he's a pass catcher that's got to learn how to really play in an NFL system. So my opinion, and again, hopefully I'm really, really wrong about that. So we'll see what's up. The big thing for me is that this led to some opportunity cost on day 2. I think it was pretty big opportunity cost. Just going through a couple of names that were picked around where we could have been, right? Patriots get center Jared Wilson at pick 95. All right. We took Milroe at 92. No problem there. We're going to talk about Milroe in a second, but we traded 82 to move up to go get Imiwari. Jared Wilson at center would have helped this team a lot. It helped this team this year and maybe more. Raiders got Jack Besh at 58. Texans got Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins, but they got Jalen Noel way later, like crazy late. I couldn't believe how late Jalen Noel went. And the Niners just loaded up on defensive talent. I think the Niners unfortunately had a really good start to their draft, and they gave a lot of support to Bosa. But at pick 113, they go get CJ West. So, and that's the dude that could go play your nose, which we kind of still need a nose. So I think the opportunity cost for what we did in day 2 was actually really quite big. So going from 4 picks down to 3 picks, and without making that Imanwari selection, I think we could have had more value this year. Again, I'll pause and say, I think we took the dudes with the absolute highest ceiling, bar none. And I hope I am so wrong. I want these guys to be super successful. I hope I'm so wrong and I eat so much crow that they're not only like successful right away, but they're long-term huge impact players to the Seahawks. So that's my day 2 look. And, again, that's the day 2 look so far, right? I want to pause there. Let me see if there's anybody else chiming in. Again, I was coming back in with Return is the best, just saying, hey, Return of the Jedi is really, really good. I think a little bit underrated. I think most folks would have Return probably 3rd in the first trilogy, but I don't know. It's a pretty delightful movie. So I appreciate that, Ganos. All right. So I go through all of that opportunity cost, and I haven't mentioned the biggest dude, with the 92nd selection, the Seahawks select Jalen Milroe, QB of Alabama. I got to say this to me is an amazing pick at pick number 92. It's amazing because Jalen's ceiling, I think it's like literally, hopefully you'd agree. I don't care. Hopefully. Do you agree? Tell me if you do or not. But I think his ceiling is legitimately Lamar Jackson. I know that's obviously the comp that gets thrown around, but ceiling wise, we're talking about the best player in football, right? At the most important position in all pro sports. So it's pretty insane. I think his floor and his year 1 impact is kind of the part I had my issue with the opportunity cost with the rest of day 2. But with Jalen, his year 1 impact floor to me is that Clint Kubiak gets his Taysom Hill. He gets his weapon. We talked about this live during the draft stream. Clint Kubiak's initial press conference, I think it was Nemhauser, Hawk Blogger, who asked Kubiak, why were you so good with the Saints on, 3rd and short, 4th and short? Kubiak didn't miss a beat. He didn't even think about it. This was like in his DNA. He goes, well, we had a special player. We had Taysom Hill. That was it. It wasn't, oh, we're so good at scheming. It was none of that. It was, we have a weapon other teams basically can't stop on 3rd and short, 4th and short, or when they got to throw the ball. Taysom Hill is really good at that thing. I think for our Seahawks, we just gave Kubiak the opportunity that I've been begging for now for a couple of years, which is to be all 4 downs offensively aggressive. And actually talked with Earl Thomas about this in that interview, where Earl was like, look, in the modern NFL, you got to treat 3rd down as if it's 2nd down. So just get yourself into like 4th and 1, 4th and 2, 4th and 3, and go for it. We just gave ourselves an absolute incredible weapon that I think Kubiak is going to use to incredible advantage. And I know that Mike McDonald understands the type of pressure a Jalen Milroe could put on a team, because he had to get his defense ready and playing against Lamar Jackson for all that time. He talked about that in his press conference with John Schneider after the whole draft had wrapped up. So that's my day 2. But of course, look, we are a much more dangerous team with Milroe right now. The rest of day 2, I hope it is an absolute smashing home run. Of course I do. I cheer for this team, and I hope I'm wrong. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that for sure. Um, but that does set us up. Luke is dangling. He has no hand. It's kind of sad, but they're staring at a beautiful galaxy, and he hits the Millennium Falcon. He gets sucked back in, gets a new robotic hand. That was kind of cool. And we get ready for Ganos's favorite, the return of Jedi John Schneider. So let's look at day 3 in a second. So, all right. So we got Samuel Gelber saying, this sounds like the discourse around Lamar when he was drafted, and he had to tell reporters over and over that he wasn't a running back. Yeah, Sam. He wasn't. And I do think that, Lamar Jackson snuck back into the first round. I mean, the Ravens were obviously now in retrospect, incredibly smart to go back into the first round and go get Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson had a lot more, I'd say a lot more throwing success on tape than Milroe, and a little bit more consistency, but he also had to go get more consistent as a pro. Look, I mean, and the point being, Sam, I think you're making that I want to make, and is that I think all the skills are there. There's nothing Jalen can't do. Nothing. He has the arm. You see times where he throws with incredible touch, incredible accuracy. He clearly has a freaking hose. He has an absolute gun. He can create on the move. He can extend plays, innately, organically, and cause absolute havoc for defenses. It might take a little bit of time for him to get sharper, but he's in a beautiful scenario, in my opinion. Sitting behind Darnold, does not have to rush it, can still get on the field in meaningful ways. And Sam, remember, Taysom Hill also threw the ball, right? So when I say Clint Kubiak gets his Taysom Hill, that doesn't mean he's just a running back for me. And I'm not saying that's what you were saying, but I want to, clear that up too. It's like, no, this dude can throw the ball because he is a quarterback, and it's going to be, I think, really exciting. We got Smigmel saying Russell Wilson was too short to play in the NFL. I'm assuming that's got some sarcasm italics with it, because obviously Russell gave us, 10 great years. The Snail says Milroe is an amazing runner. He needs work as a passer, but he has a cannon. 100%. Like that. That's right. And again, there's enough throws on tape, guys, that they're all there. It's not like, oh, he can't make this particular throw. No, it's there. It's about consistency, which whatever, players can get more consistent, players can get smarter, players can get, grow their knowledge of the game, and they can learn to process better. Look at Geno Smith's processing his first couple of years with the Jets, which wasn't all that bad. Tough situation. Jets are a terrible franchise, but he grew. He got a lot better at that. And no doubt that Jalen Milroe, especially with what you're hearing about him, the way he approaches the game, like, he is humble. He's hungry. What is not to like about that? All right. And we got Randy saying this draft is based on potential and upside. It could be a bad draft, or it could be a great draft, or just an average draft. We will see. Randy, I know you're, kind of giving all the answers there, but you're not wrong. And that is really, some drafts you get done and the upsides, the ceiling is not there. That's the point, right? Sometimes you get done with the draft and go, all right, there's a sincere ceiling to what the talent that we put in here this year. Not this time. This time there are players here that have obviously Pro Bowl potential, but then there are players that have legitimate all pro potential, which is how you change teams, right? And how you change a franchise and get into a winning position. All right. So appreciate all the great comments. Thank you. Keep them coming. So that does take us to day 3, which again is the return of the Jedi Master. Put this poll back on youtube.com/Seahawkers podcast before, or it was right after day 3. I said, what a day. Which new Seahawk do you believe is the best value? We had 4 on screen: Riley Mills, Torrey Horton, Bryce Cabaldo, and Damian Martinez. Pretty spread distribution, but the wide receiver from Colorado State, Torrey Horton, 42%. And we'll get into that in a second for sure. Remember, if you're out there watching, we got almost 250 of you with us live, which is kind of cool for a Sunday night. Please like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and of course, share it with 1212s, because we want to keep growing. It's a lot more fun when there's good folks like you in here with us, helping us along. So, pardon me. So day three. All right. So what did I got queued up for day three? I think I went back to the list of names and I did. Day three to me had a theme as well. There was a couple of themes and it looked like this for me. Number one, John took a lot of leaders. There were a lot of dudes who wore the letter C on their chest. And of course they were captains of their respective team. That was kind of cool to see. John also took a lot of players who slipped. Basically, it looked like because of injury. And you could also, by the way, talk about Arroyo, that he went at 50 because of some injury concerns as well, and injuries he's had in the past years, that he might have been a first round talent as well. But he took dudes that clearly fell down the board because of injury in day three, which is really, really cool. I also think that John executed, I would call, two special projects, and we'll talk about both of those in a second as we look at the board. And look, there's a third of the game on offense and a third of the game on defense. And while special teams is being more and more diminished with what I think are dumb and regressive kickoff rules that just get stupider and stupider, special teams still has a real huge place in the NFL. And John absolutely found day one contributors on special teams that could answer some, I'd say, some big time sore spots that have just been not good enough the last few years with our Seattle Seahawks. So let's look at some day three stuff here. So day three, we start with Riley Mills from Notre Dame. Again, what we said earlier was, if you like Ty Robinson from Nebraska, well, then you should like Riley Mills. And maybe not quite as splashy, but big, strong, cerebral, really knows his stuff. And this is a good opportunity for us to add strength on strength. I would have liked that Alfred Collins nose tackle, which I hate to give the Niners credit. They also got Alfred Collins, and there were some others as well. That's not what Mills is, but he's another really good rotational piece as a defensive tackle, 3 technique, maybe play the 5 technique, all good. He was quite good at Notre Dame. It's going to take probably at least a half a year for him to come back. We'll see what we get in year one. If anything, he might be kind of like a redshirt candidate, but that's kind of my take on Riley Mills. People loved the Torrey Horton pick. And I also think, and I'd love you to chime in on chat, I also think people loved it, number one, because the value seems extreme for what you're getting. Again, he gets hurt like 6 or 7 weeks in, has to can the rest of his season. He had a great 2022, great 2023. He was off to an explosive 2024, gets hurt, kind of has to sit out the rest of the year. And then he kind of fades away. He runs a 4.41. I think that was at his pro day, but he really is like a 3.35 guy. And he was like fully sprinting 2 weeks after he was basically cleared after a major injury. So he is, for all intents and purposes, he looks to be like the younger MVS, which is a very valuable wide receiver, maybe with even better hands. And we'll see what we get here. I would have preferred we used chips earlier on like the Jalen Knowles of the world or Jack Besh, but to still get a talent like Horton this far down, where are we? Pick 166. Tremendous value. And we talked about special teams earlier. Horton can return kicks day one. He can return punts day one. He's wily. He's elusive. I think he's a darn good football player. So again, if there are some comments about him, I'd love to have you chime in there. Okay, let's go to round 5, pick 175 with Robbie OOTS from Alabama here. So member of the Mustache Club, big beefy boy club, and not a very productive tight end, but he's drafted as a fullback. Big, powerful guy. To me, this was the first. Oh, actually, I meant to say earlier, I think Riley Mills was the Adam Durde special project. Like, I think AD, it was clear, really wanted him, was pounding the table for him. And I think McDonald, because he had all this capital, gave AD his selection. Like, hey, you want that guy? We agree. We like him, but you really love him? Okay, we're going to give you that guy and let you prove to us you can make him something special. I think the same thing probably happened with OOTS. My guess is that Kubiak is like, I want a fullback. I want a guy that has, that maybe knows Milrow as well. Could be really cool. And I want to draft a fullback to go compete with Brady Russell. And I think OOTS he's actually really athletic for his size, like kind of crazy athletic and super powerful. Where I like Brady Russell, but the times he did line up last year as a fullback, I wasn't blown away with like his sheer power. I like the guy. I like the guy a ton. I hope he sticks. But in the Kubiak offense, fullbacks matter a lot, whether that's just to get a second guy in the backfield, kind of an H-back, kind of a fullback, or in 13 personnel, OOTS is out there as that third tight end. So he's got more versatility and more power. I also love the fact that the team is clearly rotating back to more power of football. It's just a sign. They say they're going to go do something, then they go do that thing. Like, no, we're gonna incorporate a fullback. Then they go draft one. The draft boards are screaming, "Oh, he could have been a UDFA. You could have got him in the 7th round." I don't know. I guess my take on that is, who cares? Like, sure, I understand. Again, I argued for opportunity cost earlier, so you could throw that back in my face and say, well, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. I hear you. I do think this was the special project that Clint Kubiak was after. And because of all of this draft capital ending up with 11 picks, um, Schneider gave him a chip and said, go ahead, have fun, go take OOTS. So that was also really, really, I think a fun pick and a cool pick. We heard earlier from folks in the chat that they really liked Bryce Cabeldue from Kansas. I don't know that much about him. So if folks have stuff about him they want to chime in with, great. All I know so far is kind of what I picked up from some other Seahawks pundits watching a little bit of Cabeldue's tape. And really what I could glean is another quite a good athlete that's almost, not quite, but almost as athletically gifted as Gray's able. Kind of maybe like an 80%, 90%. The Seahawks have done this in years past, predating McDonald for sure, that they would kind of take twin players, one at a higher caliber or a higher draft capital, and then one like a Derek Young a couple of years ago, they would take one further back in the draft. And it's like, okay, we want to get a duplicate of this other guy. So if the first guy maybe gets injured or whatever it is, they want to get a little redundancy built into this farm system, if you will. So that's my take on Cabeldue so far. I don't have much else, but if there are things there, let's see. Marlins chiming in, I think, he said, I know we got a beefy boy in UDFA. Okay, UDFAs, but I really wanted a true nose tackle. I think Mills might be great, but not a true nose. Marlon, I think you're right. I don't think he's a true nose either. He's too light to be a true nose. And it's a great point. Well, we're not going to touch UDFAs today, and I do know that we have quite a load of them. The point of getting the Alfred Collins type, who was there, if we use their capital differently, the point of that is to get a dude who eats up, like Galactus style, eats up 2 spaces, right? It has to be accounted for. So we could free up Byron Murphy. Like Byron freed up Leo last year, and Jaron freed up Leo last year. And Leo is just freaking all world anyway. We want to free up Byron Murphy this year. We don't want Byron Murphy to go do the dirty work of being a nose. He can absolutely do it and actually do it quite well, because he's just so freaking strong. His lower half is ridiculously strong. So he can be an effective nose, but you wouldn't take a nose at pick 16 overall. You would take an explosive defensive tackle who has, a higher penetration upside than, say, an Alfred Collins. So I'm with you, Marlon. I think that's a great point. I do wish we would have allocated a little bit differently in that day 2 and gotten a real nose, but we'll see. There is still time. There are going to be folks that fall out, and it has been a position, in fairness, it has been a position that Schneider has been able to get a solid player, sometimes quite late in the process, like 4th wave, 5th wave of free agency, cap cut casualties and go shopping. So I think we'll see more movement there, is to say all that stuff. Okay. Damian Martinez, round 7 from Miami. Love what I see on tape. I think the horizontal agility side to side is good, not great, but most folks are saying, hey, any other year, even this year, he could have went as high as 4. But you see that he's a good, elusive, powerful back, a very powerful back. But I think anybody with eyes and a sense could be like, yeah, he looks like a nice back. Does he look like Travion Henderson, and the guys that got picked super high. No, to me, he does not, right? But a solid back, and wish him the best in what is a crowded room. Mason Richmond, just a big guard from Iowa. I don't know that much about him. And Ricky White III is very interesting because we talked about special teams. I want to land there with the last day on special teams. He had like four block punts. He's a captain out there. He's a darn good wide receiver. Now, there are some dudes who run like a 4.3, in underwear, and they don't look that fast on the field. I would even say Golden, who got picked by the Packers, he ran the 4.29. He's obviously fast. I don't think he plays that fast. Ricky White, he ran whatever he ran, like a 4.6 or something like that. And then he retested and got back down to the 4.4s. The dude looks like a 4.4 guy. He looks super shifty, really quick. Maybe a little slight of frame, but I don't care. This dude, to me, he might have a path right away on special teams, and then you never know. He might surprise to the upside. Maybe he gets stashed on the practice squad. Maybe he just makes the team straight away. This is going to be a very, very interesting and very crowded wide receiver room. So you do wonder, what's the fate for Cody White? What's the fate for Bobo? It's going to be a lot of competition, which it is every single year in the NFL for folks who are not named JSN and Leo Williams, right? So that's going to be very fun. Okay, so we got Donovan saying we need a kick returner. So Donovan, I covered it earlier. Maybe you're not there yet, or just joining, or missed it. Doesn't matter. Torrey Horton from Colorado State, right? The 5th round pick at 166. He can do it, and he can do it really well. And that's your true 4.3, high 4.3 guys. Mid 4.3, strong, can break through. His cut ability, if you will. I professed and fell in love with Jalen Knoll from Iowa State throughout the process. He was actually my favorite wide receiver, like my number one that I thought Seattle should go target. I think Torrey Horton is a pretty good, I'm not going to use a term like a poor man's, because that's not fair to Horton. I think Torrey Horton could do most of the things, if not all the things, that Jalen Noel showed he could do. Knoll showed he could do. So, Donovan, that includes being a kickoff returner. He could be that dude. But I appreciate you bringing that up, because I 100% agree with you that we've just gone through years where our kick and our punt returners have been so mid. I don't know why you watch other teams just find guys and start at the 35-yard line, start at the 40-yard line, get really strong punt returns. Yeah, I'm very bullish on that in particular, and I think it's a bit of a field tilter. So thank you for the great comment, Donovan. And then we got Randy saying, we were talking about Murphy earlier, saying Murphy's an average nose tackle. We are wasting his 3-tech talent. He was drafted as a 3-tech. We need a nose tackle. I think he's better than an average nose tackle. But that doesn't matter. Like, the point that you're making, Randy, is the right point. That's the point. He's not meant to play 0 or 1. He can, and I actually think he plays it well above average. I think he took on a lot of two people last year. He did the thing where he went down on one knee, held his ground, and there's a reason Ernest Jones was able to step in and be so effective, because, folks like Murphy are eating up 2 dudes, and Leo is going wild because Murphy's eating up 2 guys. With all that said, your point is your point, and it's the right point. That's why I thought the missed opportunities in day 2 are the thing that are the most concerning for me still at this point. I would have loved a fresh nose tackle. Maybe we go back and re-sign Hankins. He's fine, but I really wanted like a 23, 24-year-old, 330 pounder who's got a lot of proof to the world. That's the kind of dude I want in the middle. We'll see if we get there. All right. So let's see. We got Jo, which is also a fun name to say, saying, I like OOTS. A boulder has no business rolling that fast. Well, Jo, you got away with words, my man. That's exactly right. And he's fun. He's fun. So again, when folks say we overpaid for a 5th rounder, et cetera, the NFL is becoming more and more specialized, especially when you look at the fullback position and what they need to do, or that third style tight end. If you're out there in 13 personnel, you value specialists and you go get them, especially if you're like, there's maybe 5 or maybe 3 dudes in all of college who could do those things well. And it's not like a transfer, like, oh, that guy projects like he does these things. Like, no, this guy did them. He did them at a high level at the highest school and showed it over and over and over again. So I'm with you on the OOTS. I hope we just put it in play, which would be a lot of fun. All right. So that took us through day 3. Day 3, again, to me, this is where John was the return of the Jedi. And just to quickly look at that board again, he's trading down. He's getting incredible value with guys that usually 5, 6, 7, and maybe even this year, we'll see, they tend to be what they are. Some have an impact. Some will play a lot of special teams, and some will kind of be journeymen and kick around and be valuable for a year or two, or be a good backup. And that's typically what these rounds produce. And again, John Schneider has been quite good at getting a lot of value. Of course, we know, the Shermans and everything else, and Maxwell's and those types, chancellors that were late and had gotten extreme value from, in some cases, Hall of Fame value, which is insane. But I get the feeling that John maybe outperformed this time, especially with the seven picks in day 3. So overall for me, I think it's a super strong draft. I forget what the next slide is, so I'm just going to see it. But yeah, that's it. It was actually good. Overall, I think to me, this is, even with day 2 concerns, and I have them, and I think I made my arguments hopefully in a way that, folks aren't like mad. And I don't care if you're mad. I don't care if you're mad, but hopefully I was able to communicate them in a way that you understood where I was coming from, at least. That while we're gambling on extreme upside with Imanwari and Arroyo, he wasn't my favorite tight end. That while we're gambling with that extreme upside, there were other things we could have done with that capital that I think made us a better team, would have made us a better team today. But John's playing a different game that I have to go play. He's got to look at this thing on a very different horizon. And I really do trust that he had a masterful thing. I think I'm in the A- category overall, which is to say I'm actually a pretty tough grader. I know Adam and Phil would agree. But to me, it's a solid A-. So if anybody's got any ideas of what you'd frame it up as, hit us up. Hey, when this video does end, a thing you could do that is absolutely so helpful is, it's really cool when you join live, because it makes it more fun. And I get to read these, and we get to read them, put them on screen. And that's really, really cool. But a thing you could do that really helps out too is that after the video is done live, to go back out to YouTube and just drop a comment on the video post going live. Because for whatever reason, all these beautiful comments you dropped while we were here, they don't affect the YouTube algorithm. I don't know why. I mean, I feel like they should. They don't. So I don't know. Go drop your favorite pick. Go drop your grade. Whatever. Drop a wave emoji. Throw a tomato at me. I don't care. It's going to help the algorithm out, and we would really, really appreciate that. So love you to subscribe. We do appreciate that. Like, comment. It means the world. And if you're getting more value than just that out of this, because those things are free, you can go to getintheflock.com. You can become a patron, but you get things for that. You get to join our Discord. You get to join our Facebook Ring of Honor. You get to be the people that travel out with us and go to the casino at Clearwater Casino. And then we bring you on stage to be part of this because you matter to us and you're with us. You're really cool people. And again, Amy, Lisa, Jason Bonner, all had that experience, and we love them for it because they're really good people. So I hope everybody had a real good time. This was a lot of fun, and I think with that, there's only one thing left to say, and of course, that's go Hawks.